Hello, my name is Janirke Bolotpikova. I am a PhD student of Sarsina Manjolofis Kazakhstan University. And today I'm going to talk about the teaching English translations of Abhay. So let's get started. Here is a content which has several steps. First of all, I'll start from the introduction and then I'll explain why did we choose Abhay and why his works are excellent teaching tools. And how can we teach English translations of Abhay's works? And in the end, or during the process of teaching, what will student acquire? So, first of all, let me give a brief information about my country. Kazakhstan is the largest country in Central Asia and the ninth largest in the world. And in our country, there are 120 ethnic groups and nationalities who live peacefully and happily. And since the university concentrates representatives of different cultures, religions, and languages, it is necessary to promote the development of ethnic culture at a high level. Kazakhstan is a young country, and that is why we are still on our way of development. So for us, it is very important to attract foreigners, but not only with our beautiful landscapes and delicious cuisine, also with our interesting and rich language culture. So why do we choose Abhay? First of all, Abhay is a lead person of Kazakh nation. Abhay was the genius person of his century, and he's a Kazakh poet, philosopher, translator, composer, thinker, public educator, public figure, the founder of Kazakh written literature and its first classic. Also, he's an enlightener. In our Abhay is a lead figure not in our literature and language, also in the history. If we talk about the Abhay, we need to know that there was three different sources that affected on Abhay's works. First of all, first source was Kazakh oral stories, like storytellings, fairy tales. The second source was Eastern philosophers, Eastern thinkers' works, and the third one, European classics and writers. And Abhay was the first person who translated directly Russian from Russian to Kazakh. And especially when we after like 150th anniversary of Abhay, with the support of UNESCO, interest on our culture and literature has increased. And after that time, Abhay's Book of Words and his other poems and his poetry translated into many foreign languages. And before going to the theme of how can we teach English translations of Abhay's works, firstly, we need to know about the author's geographical location. Where was he born? The place where he was born, and the history of his country, of his nation, the language family, because English language family and Kazakh language families, they are different. And of course, culture and religion. These five, sometimes more crucial things that really affect on the perception of the worldview of the author. That is why other translator or other person who read the translations of the authentic material, we need to take into consideration the authors, the details about the authors. The author, yeah, like above mentioned details. And also here on the map, we can see that Kazakhstan is located in the Central Asia, and we have 5 different neighbors like Russia, China, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Of course, that is why our culture, like our history, is very interesting. And after we figure out the details about the author, so we can move on to the next stage. So we need to, if we want to create a curriculum and content, we need to take into account the language level of students. Kazakhstan is a modern, new country, young country, and that is why right now we can see a lot of foreign students who came to study in Kazakhstan, and for them, learning Kazakh language is kind of a mandatory subject. So here we can see from the table on the top, here is a sample of curriculum for the elementary level. For example, it's a week 8. So here we can say about seasons, weather, nature. So here we can, students can give a description using nouns and adjectives. And on the second table, here's for intermediate level. Here we can make tasks more complex, and these tasks are used to develop more skills than one, sometimes for all 4 skills. So here, the sample of the assignment. Here, the first step. Students are going to read the original text with the missing word, then listen to the music and fill in the gaps. Here, as an example of the music, we chose Abbay's Jil Sistinde Jargay, or in English, In the Silent Luminous Night song. And in case if they have some troubles with guessing the missing words, they can use translated text as a clue. And this task can help to develop their listening skills, writing, reading, and also they can, after they can talk to each other. And here, several methods as effective ways to develop ethnocultural competence through comparative learning of Abbay's works in English. The first one is intercultural method, designed for the parallel study of ethnic cultures as part of comparative analysis of general and particularly in the culture of different peoples. So here that is why we can use Abbay's works also and compare with their translations. Then contrast method, by comparing samples of ethnic culture, teaches to develop the perception of characteristics of the studied ethnic groups and increase aesthetic interest in folk art. Further, I will give one example of contrast method. So here the next one is training method and open tasks. They help to apply the acquired knowledge in practice, form the skills of understanding national culture and perception of cultural differences. And conversation discussion method aimed to develop the ability to listen and hear others, analyze information on the basis of rational reasoning and express their thoughts. And before talking about the Cinqueño method, I would like to give a brief information about what is a cinqueño. Cinqueño is a 5-line poetic form that originated in the early 20th century in the United States under the influence of Japanese poetry. There are several types of cinqueño, but I chose one where the first word is going to be a noun, subject of a poem or a text, and the second one, adjectives that will describe the subject. Then the third one, 3 verbs that will express the action in the text, and the fourth one to describe the thoughts. We can use 4 words or 4 phrases, and the 5th one is a synonym. for their text, for their poem. Like, how can you? And using Cinquain method, students identify the main idea, summarize the most important data, and explain complex ideas. And the Cinquain method helps to conclude the task, like the theme. And here, they're an example of they are authentic material with translated versions. Abai's Autumn, and here Darian Rothenberg's and Richard McCain's translations. On the bottom, you can see the results of the Cinquain methods. Using Cinquain methods, we just wrote the final the final material. And here I would like to mention one thing about using contrast methods. For example, here, if we look on the left, Dorian Rothenberg's translation, on the second part, the first line, no grass, no tulips. Here, I would talk about the flowers. So, for example, in Abai's work, here he says about the flower Beishishik. Beishishik is a snowdrop, while Darian Rothenberg wrote about tulip, and Richard McCain just skipped this part. He just wrote just a flower. But for nomad people, snowdrop has a deep meaning, because snowdrop is the first spring flower, which means new beginning, hope, rebirth, symbolizes, and the ability to overcome challenges. Here we can see that Dorian Rothenberg's perception of his own worldview and the differences between, the two different people, that they are from different countries and different cultures. And what will the student acquire during the process? Understand the national culture, the ability to perceive the differences of other cultures, analyze information, ability to summarize a topic, opportunity to deepen the ethnic cultural knowledge and practice, to make a brief conclusion, and of course, reading, writing, listening, pronunciation, and speaking skills. And to sum up, I would like to say that by teaching Abai's work to foreign students, we can not only increase interest in Kazakh language, but also learn and teach extensive information about national and cultural values, traditions, and customs. So, in the end, I would say thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you.